Welcome to the Audiobook Lovin Podcast, discussing all things audiobooks with the authors that write the stories and the narrators that perform them. Brought to you by Viviana, Enchantress of Books.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Season 4, Episode 20 of the Audiobook Lovin Podcast. Today, I am chatting with author Patricia D. Eddy. Welcome to the podcast, Patricia. How are you doing today?
Thank you. I am very good. How are you?
I'm excited to be chatting with you and getting to know you and your books better.
I am very excited about this too.
Perfect. Why don't we start by having you tell us a little bit about yourself, how long you've been writing, and how you got started?
Well, I have been writing pretty much my entire life. One of my first memories is actually sitting at the kitchen counter at my parents' house on a typewriter and typing out, one-page short stories that were probably horrible, but still that was what I did for fun. So writing has always been a part of my life, but I did not publish my first book until 2013, simply because I didn't finish my first book until I guess I finished it in 2012. I had a lot of partially finished books that I would start and get maybe a third of the way through or halfway through, and then they would get hard, and so then I would give up. But in 2013 or 2012, I finally made the commitment, told myself, okay, I'm going to do NaNoWriMo, and I'm actually going to finish it this time, because I had tried several years running to actually finish, and that was the first year that I won NaNoWriMo and finished an entire novella that ended up turning into a novel that was my first book.
That is an accomplishment. So, writing and getting it published is a huge feat. I'm sure that there are many, many authors that have many, many stories that are a couple of chapters in, half the chapter, almost all the way done, but not really. So that's definitely something that I think it's common among the authors to have these stories untold yet. So, but it helps when you're like trying to figure out what to do. You can always grab one of those old ones, dust it off, add some, new juju to make it all work out, and boom, it works, right?
Yep. I am definitely one of the books that I did not finish from, I don't know, maybe 2006 timeframe. I really, really do want to go back and actually turn that into a novel one of these days, because I loved those characters, and I did not do them justice because I did not know enough about plotting at that point or character development. But now that I do, they need another shot. So at some point in the next couple of years, I'm going to go back to them.
That's great. It's amazing how you're able to hone the skills and learn as you continue to write and as the years progress, and then you're able to like, hey, honey, come here. It's so perfect.
Yep.
So your tagline says beautifully broken romance. And in your bio, it says that you write romance for the beautifully broken. Tell us what you mean by that.
So I believe that we are all broken in some ways, and broken is not bad. When I say broken, I mean we have flaws, we have imperfections, we have differences. So beautifully broken to me is just people. And everyone has different things about themselves that maybe they would like to change. Maybe they wouldn't like to change, but they just know that these are things that are different from their brother or their sister or their best friend or their parent or their child, whatever. I liken it to, I tell this story in my newsletter, that some of the most beautiful things in the world, like mosaics and stained glass, are broken, and that you have to break an eggshell to make an omelet. You have to break a glow stick to make it turn on. And so being broken is not, in my mind, anything negative. It is us experiencing life and going through life and having the good things happen, but also the bad things happen, and those bad things and the good things, they make you into who you are. And so when I say I write characters or I write romance for the beautifully broken, what I really mean is that I write romance for real people, for people with real problems and real flaws and real challenges in their lives who still find their happily ever after.
And that looks different for everybody, which is one of your
Correct.
themes as well. So that's fantastic. Yeah, I think sometimes when we hear the word broken, we automatically go to that negative space of something being not correct. And at the end of the day, even in nature, nothing is symmetrical. Nothing is perfect. There's always something that makes it unique.
Exactly.
And the things that we go through are, some leave scars physically, mentally, emotionally. But those, it provides us with who we are today because of those things. So I just wanted to make sure that I was like, okay, it's usually not something that's used in romance, the whole like broken. So I'm like, oh, okay, we're going to talk about this.
Exactly. Like, I mean, one of the things that I tell people all the time, I have ADHD. I've had ADHD my entire life. I did not know that I had it until I was 40. So I've been dealing with it for a number of years. And, that is something that a lot of people consider broken, because it's something that isn't necessarily right. But at the same time, if I didn't have ADHD, I would not be the person that I am today. And I would not have accomplished a lot of the things that I have accomplished in my life. And so I can't in any way say that I hate my ADHD or that I wish my ADHD didn't exist, because I like who I am. I'm proud of who I am. But who I am is a person with ADHD. And that does not make me any less than anyone else or any more than. I mean, it just makes me who I am.
Yeah. And that's as far as the whole being romance, not using that term. I mean, we have heroes that have so much trauma because they were in military or background histories. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I think we all love romance, that there's something that we can all identify with, that we find that is not that cookie cutter perfection of what society maybe might see as beautiful or fill in the blank, fulfilled. But the term itself is never really said in romance, because again, it has that negative connotation as if something's a flaw. So when I saw that on your website, I was like, oh yeah, okay. I knew what you were talking about, but I was like, sometimes people are like, and everything, but I'm like, it's okay to use some of these terms just as long as the, content is there, context. Exactly. Right. Yeah. And you write all forms of different subgenres within romance. You have military and paranormal and BDSM. And so there's all these different things. What made you write in these genres?
Well, so I started out with paranormal romance, and I love the idea of being able to create a whole world and having magic or having things in the world that either don't exist in our world or that we don't know that exist in our world. Because I mean, really, I can't prove werewolves don't exist. I just, no one has proven that they do exist. So, I mean, I suppose things like that are possible. And I love the idea of believing that, there is more to this world than what we see. And so that was a lot of the allure of the paranormal romance genre. And then really, I mean, I read and enjoy all romance. I even really enjoy historical romance. I will probably never write it because, again, ADHD, the sheer amount of research that needs to go into historical romance. I am not that person. The researching things that happened in, hundreds of years ago, my ADHD would not necessarily let me do it, but I love reading about it. I just, probably will never write it. But in terms of the military and the BDSM romance, really, it was just, I write what I want to read at the time. And so as my reading tastes change, or as I get myself full up on BDSM romance over the course of a couple of months, maybe then I'll move on to something else. I like the variety. And I do think that I think that my ADHD probably plays into that quite a bit, that if I have either multiple projects going at once, or if I go back and forth between genres, it keeps everything interesting, and it keeps me learning new things and trying new things with my plots and my characters, and just keeps me motivated to keep going.
Yeah. It's definitely, I think, also part of being of a creative brain, to kind of have that learning aspect, as well as learning something new and getting into something new creatively. We're always jumping. There's some readers that will stick only to the one genre, and then there's some of the other ones, like myself, that I'm like, I hippity hop all over the place. So I don't discriminate. Yeah, there are some that I'm like, nah, I probably won't do the whole dark romance thing, or more so the bullying. That's not my thing, and that's okay. Because everybody has their own, and that's perfectly fine. But I have at least tried it and said, not for me.
Exactly. Same here. There's very little that I won't read. There are some things that I don't read often, but really, I used to, for instance, I used to hate first person, and I don't know why. I have no idea why I hated it, but every time I picked up a first person book, I couldn't get into it. And then one day I picked up this awesome first person book, and I don't even remember the title. I remember it was a YA book. This had to have been like 15 years ago, at least, maybe longer. But I loved it. It was absolutely amazing. And then from then on, I loved first person. And I could not figure out why, over the course of 2 days, my brain just went, I hate first person. Now I love first person. Okay. Well, again, that's why we try things as people. I used to hate pretty much every vegetable growing up. All of them. I ate corn on the cob and green beans. That was it. Everything else was just, nope, won't even touch it. Now I eat all vegetables because I started trying them again when I was an adult, and went, oh, wait, broccoli isn't actually horrible. It can be pretty tasty. All right. Let's try something else now.
Yeah. It's just, our taste buds when it comes down to that is vary. Same thing with our likes and dislikes when it comes down to the books. I mean, I remember my mom saying, you guys used to eat everything, fruits, vegetables, and then you guys started school, and then you were very, you completely switched and didn't like anything. Come to realize I'm huge on texture. So I love the taste and of the strawberries. I don't like the texture of the strawberry. So I'll blend that sucker up, make it into a shake.
Yep.
And things like that.
Yep.
And that's also where, I might like one type of romance, but not in this specific genre, like in a contemporary, but I'm okay with it being in a paranormal, and things like that. So it's always interesting. Is there a genre that you have yet to write in that you want to write in?
Oh, my goodness. I do really want to write a psychological thriller. I love reading them. I have a couple of ideas for them, but again, none that I have developed enough to be confident in my ability to write it. I feel like I need to get ahead on my military and paranormal romances, like get to the point where I have 2 or 3 books pretty much ready to go to be published, and then take 6 months off and really immerse myself in the psychological thriller world, because I feel like once I start, it will take me mentally to a place that I don't necessarily want to be while I'm writing romance.
But yeah, I mean, a lot of you guys that I've spoken to
one of these days
want to get into the whole, there's been some that want to jump into horror, thrillers, mysteries, psychological thrillers. So I'm like, okay, from the cutesy romances of sorts to even some of the darker romance to the I'm gonna cut you with a knife, literally, and unalive you. Great. It's amazing how our brains work and function. But also, I think it's a challenge. I think that when you find a type of arts and you're like, okay, what can we do next? How can I increase the skill set here? But yeah, definitely psychological thrillers are a big mental jump into as far as what the information looks like.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll keep you that in mind on the list of things to wait for from you. So the idea,
Yep.
so aside from the subgenres that you have, and so you today you say, okay, I'm going to write a paranormal, but then the idea of the story and the plotting stuff, where does that come from for you? Where do you get these ideas?
A lot of times I wake up with them. So I will dream a scene or a character, or just daydream a character or a couple of lines of dialogue. And from there, I can generally figure out who they are and what their story is. I write character-driven stories rather than plot-driven stories. So I anything that I start with is always a character. Now, I mean, it may be a character in a specific situation, but it is always a specific character. Like I know what they look like. I know a few aspects of their personality before I even start. And so I'll start there and then figure out, okay, well, what does this character need? What is missing from their lives? What is missing in their personal relationships or their career, things like that. All right, well, who would be a good match for them? I mean, sometimes I come up with both characters at once, but a lot of times it starts with one character. And for the paranormals, it almost always starts with the female character, assuming I'm writing male-female romance. And for the military romances, it almost always starts with the male character. I'm not really sure why the difference, but that's actually something I don't know that I realized until just now. But yeah, that's how it always starts.
Yeah. Then I have to go afterwards. You're gonna have to think about, is there a reason? But sometimes it's just, what we think or what we envision what one would be the other, so.
Right.
So once you have the stories and the characters kind of plotted out and things like that, there's these different types of scenes, the where they meet, the moment that there's an argument, the sexy stuff in between. What's your favorite scene to write?
I love the meet cute. And, however that plays out, I mean, it does not necessarily have to be cute, but that I absolutely love writing the meet cutes. And in fact, I have like 4 or 5 meet cutes in my head right now for books that I have no idea what the plots of the books are, but I know exactly how the characters meet.
I really important.
I enjoy coming up with different ways that characters can meet, as opposed to just, bumping into somebody at the coffee shop. I mean, yes, that happens, and I have had that happen several times, but I like the different ones, the very odd ones that you wouldn't necessarily expect.
Okay. So what about the opposite? Which are the type of scenes that are more difficult for you to write?
Oh, I don't know that there is a scene in particular or a type of scene that is more difficult for me to write. Where my struggles usually come, it's usually about 25% into the book. And that is usually the point at which I look at the manuscript and go, I hate everything. Why am I doing this? How can I call myself a writer? This is just horrible. And usually what happens at that point is I just need to take a step back, reread, like I'll start from the very, very beginning, and I'll do an edit pass on the first 25%. And that will help me figure out, oh, wait, I had them do this in chapter 2. That really is not what they should be doing. If I have them do this other thing, then that just smooths everything else out. But it's like, I can't see it. I'll get to that 25% and then I'll spend 2 or 3 days staring at a chapter going, why can't I write this? And then I'll finally look at how many words I have in the book and how many words I'm planning. And I'll go, oh, wait, I'm at the 25% mark. This is part of my process, apparently. So I just have to deal with it, and I have to go back to the beginning, and I have to figure out what I did wrong and then fix it. And it's usually a relatively small thing. And then I can move forward.
That's very interesting that it's always at the same mark.
Yeah. Yeah, it's either 25% or around like 15,000 words, really, depending on the length of the book. But yeah, pretty much every single time. And I finally, about a year ago, realized this is just something I have to plan for. This is something that is in my writing schedule now, kind of. I mean, I'm ADHD. I'm very bad at creating schedules and sticking to them. But I plan a little extra time for that 2 or 3 day period where I cannot produce any words.
Well, at least you're kind of giving yourself that cushion and realizing that it needs to happen, just how our brains work sometimes. It's not, it's some might say a bit of imposter syndrome, especially with those beginnings, like, why am I, how is this any good? But it's really, I guess, just your brain's way of saying, there's something you didn't catch, girl.
Right.
Go back.
Yep.
I'm going to continue to work based on that one thing. Yeah. And because you're character driven, is there a character that you've written, and promise we won't tell all the other characters, but who's your favorite that you've written so far?
My favorite is Riker McCabe from the book On His Six. It's book 3 in my Away from Keyboard series. He is, there is just something special about him, and he is definitely my favorite. But yeah, I love all my characters, but yeah, he stands out above all the rest.
Any particular reason that you can offhand think about?
He was probably the most damaged character I have ever written. So to really get into everything that makes him who he is, it was an amazing experience for me. And I really, I feel like he is real. To me, he is real because I have been working with him for so long. The series that he's in, they're interconnected standalones. So, all the past characters come back here and there, depending on the book. And so, he's been in so many books, and he has had a hand in so many of the couples that I have worked with, whose stories I've told. And so with every book that he's in, he just sort of cements that top spot for me even more.
I'm curious now to check him out and figure out, what is it about you, sir?
He is also generally my reader's favorite.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I can see that. I think when an author has a favorite story, or they're really excited about what they're writing, the readers can kind of tell, and they're like, oh, okay. And they get a little bit extra excited about what's coming, or picking up that book and reading it. Yeah. What made you decide to have your titles in audio?
I love audio. I have always loved audio. I've listened to audiobooks for years. And I feel I'm very passionate about accessibility. Again, I have ADHD, but I have a couple other physical and mental issues that mean I occasionally need accommodations. And I have done work for my day job. I work in technology for my day job. I've done work there on accessibility, and I've seen how important it is to, say, have captions on videos and have transcripts, things like that. And how much of a difference it can make in people's lives. And I know that I have a fairly decent listenership who are blind and low vision, or who simply do not have the time to read because they are, parents, or they have multiple jobs, or they have very long commutes that don't let them actually physically hold a book and read. And so audio is very important to them. And because of that, it's also very important to me. And I just know from listening to books in the past how absolutely immersive and how much more emotional impact a book can have on you when it's read by the right people in the right way and performed in the right way. And I love having that experience myself, listening to the books when I proof them. And I love that my listeners can have that experience too.
Are you part of the whole casting process, or do you work with a production company that helps you find the narrators?
Both. I do work with a production company, but I am generally the one who at least starts out with, hey, these I love this narrator and this other narrator. Do you think we could get both of them? Or at the very least, I'll say, okay, well, I want this male narrator, but I don't know who I want for the female narrator. Do you have suggestions? Here are the characteristics. So really, it's a little bit of both. Some of my books, like my series, I tend to try and stick to the same narrators just because I know listeners like that, at least when I can. Obviously, sometimes I need to switch it up if there's a character with a certain background or certain accent, try and make sure that the narrator is of the same background for inclusiveness and all of that. And I've found some great new narrators that way, whom I will use much more in the future. But yeah, so it's a little of both.
It's very important to have the right narrator for the voice to kind of voice those characters. Sometimes some narrators can get miscast, or they want them, but unfortunately they can't do that particular accent. And it's like, okay, which one do we give up, the narrator or the accent? And then some readers are like, but in your book it says he has an accent. Why'd you change it? And it's like so many balls up in the air as far as making these decisions that sometimes the listeners and the readers don't understand what's going on to make these audiobooks happen. But I'm glad that you're part of that casting, because your characters better than anybody, right? So
exactly. And I'm fortunate that my producer knows my books and knows me well enough to suggest narrators who will work out well for me.
Yeah, I'm excited that you found new narrators too. Those are always fun.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, and while listeners do want the consistency of the narrators for each series and books, what I think it's most important is when it's the same couple. Like if there's, I think it happens more so in paranormal and urban fantasy, or in contemporaries that are like either duets or war book that the arc goes over all of the books, but the story continues.
Yes.
That's when we want the consistency of the exact same narrators for that storyline. But
exactly,
when each couple is swapped out in books, we're like, switch it up. It's okay. Give me someone new, and we're fine with it. Because after a while, you guys all do this. Sooner or later, all these characters are going to have dinner together, or a party together, or they're going to be all stuck together in one spot. And those narrators are going to have to bust out all these voices, and some can do it perfectly. Others are like, you got to get creative on how they're going to remember who all these people are. So
it is definitely a challenge.
Do you have a favorite narrator to listen to? I'm not going to have you give me a favorite that you cast.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. There is all right. Yes, I actually do. I was going to say that there's no way that I could pick, but I actually do, because she is just that good at making every single one of her performances completely different. And that is Maxine Mitchell. She is amazing. She has narrated one book for me. I am desperately trying to write another book that she can narrate, because I loved her performance when she narrated for me. But everything that I have listened to from her has just been amazing. And again, every book, some narrators, and there's nothing wrong with this either. Some narrators sound very much the same on just about every book that they do. I mean, obviously they have nuances for the characters, but there are voices. And I will use somebody who's not a narrator as an example. Pretty much everyone knows what Ryan Reynolds sounds like.
Yes.
We just know, whether or not you are a fan of Ryan Reynolds, if you hear his voice, you pretty much know that's Ryan Reynolds. And in every movie that he has been in, and I mean, I happen to love Ryan Reynolds. I love just about everything that I've seen him in. But he does sound the same in just about every single movie. And there's nothing wrong with that. But Maxine's books, the ones that I have listened to, and I think I've listened to about 10 of them. I tend to listen to nonfiction more than I listen to fiction. I tend to read fiction, but there are a few authors whose books I will almost always listen to, because they always pick the greatest narrators, and it's just such a immersive experience. But yeah, every single one of Maxine's narrations I find something new to like about it and something different that I didn't notice in her work before. And so that would be why she is my favorite.
Yeah. Now she's very, very good. And I understand that sounding different for the books and the stories that you're going, wait, is that Maxine? Oh yeah, that is Maxine.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. He does have that ability to do that. Do you find yourself, now that you have all these audiobooks, that you know that the next set of books and as you're writing, that these are going to that will end up being in audio, that you write a little different now, knowing that it's going to come into audio, or has that not changed at all for you?
I don't necessarily write differently, but I definitely edit differently. Once I started putting my books into audio and listening to them as they came back, and I started realizing, oh wait, I don't need so many dialogue tags because this is going into audio. Or I got very good at listening for repeated sounds, not necessarily repeated words, but words that sound the same, because that doesn't always make for the best audio experience. So my editing process definitely changed. And in part of that process now is I listen to all of my books. I either have Microsoft Word read them to me, or I read them out loud myself, which is often a quite painful process, just because how many of us really like our own voices when we hear them for multiple hours in a row? But you catch things. I catch things all the time doing that I would never have caught otherwise. And so not only is it something that I do for audio, it's something that I think makes my ebooks and paperbacks better too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that it's been part of the conversation in the industry for those authors that write, knowing that this is going to eventually be in audio, those tags being extremely important to get rid of. Because we realize who's talking based on the narrator's choice of voice and tones and cadences, and we're like, and she said, and they said, and move this, and you're like, no, stop. And I think they're even getting better now that there's more. Some authors add those text conversations, and those will sometimes be done in duet. But some authors will be like, yeah, have them say, Marie said, John said, Marie replied, John replied, and I'm like, just talk.
Yep.
So it's getting there.
And it's the other way around too. I have had instances where I have been editing and I have looked at the text and went, a reader who is reading an ebook or a physical book, they're going to know who's speaking just because of how it's arranged. My narrator, there are 3 people in this scene. My narrator might not know who is speaking. But if I don't put some indication, my narrator might not know which of the 3 men in the room is actually talking, that type of thing. So it's really interesting to go through a book that you've gone through 3 or 4 times already and went, okay, this is good, this is where I want it to be, and then you go through it again and realize, but it's not what it needs to be for the audio. All right, now let's go back and fix that.
You're going to be going to the Readers Take Denver convention in March. In it's going to be a couple of weeks at this point. Jesus, time has flown.
I know.
It seems like yesterday we're like, we have months. Now we're like, 5 weeks.
I still don't know where 2022 went, or 2021, or really even 2020. So, I mean, I have no concept of time anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. It's the fast paced, and definitely one of those things where you're going, oh, okay. So now I got to start planning and figuring out, timing and arranging things and meetups and things like that, and who you get to buying the books and getting the stuff pre-ordered. All that fun adulting stuff that they don't tell you about.
I know.
Yeah. So are you excited about going and meeting and hanging out with readers and other peers of yours?
Oh, absolutely. I cannot. Signings are my favorite thing to do, really. And I love talking to readers, and I love talking to new readers and being able to find out what they like and what they're reading, and to see the other authors that they are going to see. I am just as much of a fangirl of other authors as readers are of of authors themselves. Really, you can't. Well, I mean, okay, I shouldn't say you can't, because I'm sure there are people who do this, but most authors are readers first. I'm certain there are some authors who barely read at all, but most authors are voracious readers, and so we have our favorites too. We have people that we go to see at signings. One of my favorite things to do is, if there's a lull, is just to leave my table in the hands of my incredibly capable assistant and run off and fangirl at an author myself and go get a book signed myself. So yeah, I cannot wait to go to Denver at the end of March.
That's fantastic. I love it when I see authors fangirling over other authors and just completely dropping that whole, like, oh, I'm also the writer, and oh my God, and no, but you're like, that's who that is. So who are you looking forward to? Who are you thinking you're going to be fangirling over at Denver?
Oh my goodness. I it's been so long since I even looked at like who else is going. So I am, for one thing, I'm definitely going to be fangirling over Maxine Mitchell because she is going to be there.
Yes.
So let's just get that out of the way, right?
Good. I was hoping you were like, that's right, she is going, because I was like, if I had to tell her, she's gonna freak out. Good.
Yes. So definitely her. So I'm looking at the list now. Let's see. I love Harley Stone. She actually lives in my state, and so I get to see her every once in a while. Anyway, but I absolutely love her. Let's see. Who else am I going to be fangirling over? I love Gwen, and I am hoping I'm not going to munge her last name, but McNamee. I love her books. Her books are like candy. I will devour her books. Let's see. Oh, Pam Goodwin. Pam Goodwin was she was one of the authors that I read first. Not necessarily first, but in like one of the authors that I could say I am a super fan. Like I had read all of her books up to a certain point, and then I started reading other things, and like I just caught up buying like her last 3 or 4 releases because I had gotten behind. But I was always on top of every single one of her releases for several years, and so definitely her. So those are probably, those would be my top 3 or 4. But really, like, there are so many authors coming. Like, I love Vanessa Vale. Tonya Burrows is a friend, and I love her books. Let's see, scrolling through the list. I love Sophie Stern. Let's see. Serena Ackroyd. Before I started writing, I was a book reviewer for a couple of different sites, and I reviewed a bunch of her early books, and I loved them so much. So yeah, definitely her. I'm very happy I will get to finally actually meet her in person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, see, the other reason for me asking is now listeners will know if you're not at your table, more or less will you be.
Yes. Yep. Go check out those authors. I'm probably hanging around one of them. waiting to talk to them and hopefully get something signed.
Yeah, that's great.
But really, I mean, oh my God, there are so many
the lineup is fantastic
authors on this list.
Yeah, I mean, when we say star-studded, it's like full. I mean, like, I don't even know what I'm going to do as far as the timing and everything. I'm just kind of glad that I know most of you guys in one way or the other. I'm going to be like, I'll talk to you later. We'll get drinks.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah,
well, that's one of the that's one of the things I'm really excited about for this signing is just how many chances there are. Like, the schedule is just awesome. There are tons of chances to like step aside and like have those conversations. And I'm a complete and total introvert with social anxiety, but I am making time for all those conversations, because how often do you get that chance? You don't often enough.
No, I think that's one of the things that I've been looking at from the panel's perspective and the times, the fact that we do get these breaks, and a lot of the panels, the authors that are participating in it have said, yeah, we'll sign stuff while we're talking or soon thereafter and things like that. So there's more than just that moment of during the signings that you're going to be able to connect with the authors, which is, I think, very fantastic for the readers, especially those, well, I think anybody, even if you were local, to be able to hang out with, some of your favorites at, potential breakfasts or lunch and dinners and parties and panels. And, just like, as fellow introverts, we need to go hide somewhere. Let's go hide together.
Yes.
Small groups, it's okay. It doesn't count, so that's fantastic. Yeah, I'm looking forward to meeting you at Denver. So this will be fun. So when you're not working and writing and going to these lovely conventions, what do you do for fun?
Oh, well, I don't actually leave my house that often, especially just, pandemic and all of that. But in terms of fun, well, I have 3 cats, so there's a lot of fun happening there, or a lot of chaos happening there.
Either way.
Yes. I am teaching myself how to draw, which is not quite fun yet, because I am not very good at it, but I do enjoy it. And I'm starting to finally be able to produce things that actually look like what I intended them to look like, which is sort of exciting. Not people yet. I can't really do people. I'm still working on those techniques, but I can draw a wreath. I can draw books. So I'm starting to be able to see some progress there. I love walking, just getting outside and walking, reading. I used to cook a lot. My husband has actually taken over just about all of the cooking, which is awesome because it leaves me more time to write.
Yep.
But I do still enjoy every once in a while, especially baking. I do enjoy baking.
What's your favorite dish to bake?
Reading. I'm part Italian, and so my favorite thing to make is sauce from scratch, and then lasagna with the sauce.
Okay, yeah, that's definitely a true Italian. You don't buy the canned sauce; you got to make it yourself. So, yeah,
and there is no recipe. Like, there is no recipe to be followed. It is all instinct and a little bit of this, a little bit of that.
Yeah. See, as the girl that needs to, at least more so for baking, I think, than anything else. Because savory is different. But when baking, when I was trying to get some of those recipes from my grandmother, and she's just, Alyssa, I would have to grab that hand of hers, dump it into a mixing bowl, and then measure it out. Because I'm like, there's no way I'm going to be able to learn this recipe for myself, to be able to make it myself for and future, generations, if I don't know that it's supposed to be a cup. So thanks, Grandma.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When I was cooking, when I was cooking a lot, what I always said is that cooking is an art, baking is a science. Because it is. Baking requires precise measurements and leavening agents and all of, different chemical reactions, whereas cooking, for the most part, is savory, is much more forgiving.
Yeah, you can always bring something a little bit back by adding or removing some things. So that's true.
Right.
One of the things I love to do with our guests and to get to know them better is to play the game of Two Truths and a Lie, where you tell us 3 things about yourself and we had to figure out which one's the lie. And I always say that I say we because listeners are playing along, or so I hope. So if you're ready to tell us your 3 things, where would they be?
Yes. All right. So the first one is, there are 2 left-handed people in my family, and both of them are named Patricia. The second one, in college, I spent 1 summer driving tractor trailers. And number 3, I once gave an interview on NPR about non-alcoholic cocktails.
This is where you guys all get creative. You could have done that interview, but not at NPR. It could have been somewhere else. You could have two
Very
Patricias,
true.
but they're not left-handed.
Exactly.
Yeah, it didn't have to be in college. It could have been high school. Who knows? This is also where it's always interesting to see how good of a liar you all are. But let's see. I want to say polished tractor is the lie.
Do you want me to tell you if you're right?
Yeah.
That is the lie. I did not drive tractor trailers in college.
All right. Was it in high school or at all?
No. I've actually never driven a tractor trailer.
My goodness. So you just like just threw that in there like, nope, never done this. Gonna do it.
Actually, you can thank my husband for that, because I was sitting here before the interview going, oh my God, I need a lie. I need a lie. What am I gonna do for a lie? I am a writer. I could not come up with one single lie. So he came up with that one.
I mean, you could have been in the military. You could have been a BDSM dominatrix. You were a dragon in your past life. Of all the things you write, correct?
I wanted something that was sort of believable. I mean, I did spend a summer sort of close to someone who was driving tractor trailers. But yeah. Okay.
So you do have two individuals in your family that are left-handed and are named Patricia. Wow.
Exactly. I do not know why my mother and father did this, but I have a cousin named Patricia, and she's maybe 10 years older than I am, 12 years. No, she's older than that. She's probably 15 years older than I am. So when I was born, my parents named me Patricia. I don't know why, since my mother had a niece named Patricia, but yeah, we are the only two people in the family who are left-handed.
Oh, maybe that may happen, but who knows? Don't feel bad.
Yeah.
Or think that it's a bigger thing. It just could be that your mom really liked the name Patricia, and the other Patricia got it first because she was born first. In my family, there's two Vivianas. And one of them is my cousin, who's also about 15 years older than I am. And my mom named her, never realizing or thinking that she's going to have her own kid. And she loved the name. And then poof, she has me and my sister because we're twins. And I get Viviana. And so I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So
and I think my mother, because my mother is Irish, my dad is Italian, and so that's my genetic makeup. And I believe, I'm pretty sure they thought I was going to be a boy and they were going to name me Patrick. And then when I was a girl, they just, Patrick, Patricia. So I mean, I don't think there was anything, malicious about that.
Oh, no, never malicious.
Of, why she picked my name. But I just, and then I just found it so interesting that we were the only two in our family who are left-handed. And then to add to that, at my day job, there are 4 Patricias at my day job, and various nicknames. There's one Trisha, there's one Trish, there's me, and I forget what the 4th one goes by. I think she goes by Patricia as well. We are all left-handed.
Oh wow!
All of us.
Wow. Okay, that's
all
scary.
The Patricias in my department are left-handed. It was the weirdest thing when we found that out. Like I just, because first it was one of them who happened to have an office right next to mine. Like, you're left-handed too? Wow. And then we found the 3rd, and then we found the 4th. It was just
like, wow, are they doing this on purpose?
Kind of scary and cool.
Yeah. During the application process, must be named Patricia and be left-handed in order to apply.
Apparently.
Wow. Yeah. So what is this thing about doing an interview with NPR about non-alcoholic beverages?
So in another life, so before I started publishing books, my husband and I had a food blog. And this was back when I did a lot of cooking. And our food blog was all about local food. And so it was about, getting all of the ingredients for your meals, or at least as many as possible, locally. And one of the things that we discovered when we were doing this was something called a shrub. And a shrub is a vinegar-based fruit syrup. And you can take these vinegar-based fruit syrups, and you can mix them with like sparkling water to create mocktails. And you can do all sorts of different cool flavors, like you can do blueberry thyme or strawberry rosemary. Like you can combine fruits and herbs. You can do tomato-based shrubs and make like a non-alcoholic Bloody Mary, that type of thing. And so we blogged about this, and this was, I mean, shrubs are common now. You can find them on a lot of menus, a lot of restaurant menus, but they were not common when we started writing about them. And someone from NPR reached out, our local NPR affiliate, and wanted to talk about shrubs. And so I went down to the local station and spent a very lovely hour chatting with them about where shrubs came from and several different recipes and why we did what we did on our blog and why we were devoted to local food. And it was a wonderful time.
Sounds like fun. Yeah. A lot of people sometimes don't realize how some of those mocktails are created. Aside from food coloring, sometimes that needs to happen, but it's interesting. I have to look that up, see if I can find that article, and learn more about the shrubs. That'd be cool.
I don't know. I tried to find it about 6 months ago because I was telling a new coworker about it, and I don't think it is up on their site anymore. But if you just look up shrubs, you will find tons of recipes because they have become much more popular, and they are a great option if you just either don't want alcohol or if you are trying to cut calories or just want interesting things to drink besides water, because sometimes we all need something that's not water. Yep. And so we still make them on a regular basis, even though we are no longer doing the food blog.
Okay. Yeah, I'm definitely have to look that up. So before we go, can you tell us about what you're currently working on and what's coming up next for you?
Sure. I am right now working on book 11 of my Away from Keyboard series, which is Trusting His Instincts. And this is, it is romantic suspense, former military romantic suspense. This one is featuring a female or a woman who is a retired Air Force, and very, very set in her ways, very strict, everything has to be exactly the way that I plan it, and I cannot deal with plans that do not work out. And so she's a very interesting woman to write about. And so I'm very much looking forward to her story. I'm not quite to the 25% mark yet, so it's still going a little slow, but I am through the meet cute, and I absolutely love the meet cute between Raylan and Nash. Nash builds furniture, so that's always a fun thing to research and to envision and to describe men working with their hands and producing something that is, I love doing things like that. And then after that, I am not 100% positive what I'm going to do, because I have 2 new series ideas. Actually, no, I have 3 new series ideas that I want to write. 2 of which I already have covers for and titles and characters. So I'm going to pick one of them. Okay. And I don't know which one yet. They are all romantic suspense. One of them is BDSM. So I will definitely be working on that series in 2023, whether or not it's the book after this or, 2 or 3 books later. I am not 100% positive yet. But I tend to, again, ADHD, I tend to start at least 2 books at a time. After I finish a book, I'll take a few days off, and then I'll start like 2 different books. And after 3 or 4 days, one of them will call to me, and I will pick that one to then work on alone. It helps sometimes to have 2 to start with, to go, okay, well, which characters actually want to talk to me and which characters are still being standoffish and doing their own thing, because they do that.
Yes.
A lot.
Oh boy. And that does not work for you.
No. I have tried to sit some of them down and go, listen, you told me you wanted a book. This is what is involved in you getting a book. So come on. But I do actually have full-on conversations in my head with characters. And so, they sometimes talk back, sometimes not.
Yeah, a lot of authors say that they have those characters that pop up out of nowhere sometimes, or like the one that you were saying, once the story is annoying the shit out of you while you're writing everybody else's story, but when it comes down time to their own, all of a sudden they become very quiet. And you're going, really?
Yes.
Really, fucker. Okay.
Now is the time you decide to be shy.
No. Gotta love it when they do that.
Yep.
Well, we'll definitely be keeping, following your social medias and things like that to figure out to learn which one you decide to comes up next after words and ensure that these characters are speaking to you. Well, thank you so much, Patricia, for taking the time to hang out with me today. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. This was absolutely wonderful.
Perfect. Thank you. We will be including all your social media information and newsletter stuff for readers to make sure that they're following you over at the landing page for this episode at Viviana, Enchantress of Books. And until next time, happy listening.
Thank you to all of our Audiobook Lovin Podcast Patreon. Special thanks to Nixley Zenner, Carol Liebner, Brittany Robinette Leiter, Dawn Darch, Michelle Bastard, Brandy Schmidt, April Branson. The Audiobook Lovin Podcast has special Patreon access levels. Join today to receive benefits including early access to episodes, shout-outs, special exclusive content, and much more. Support the podcast by becoming a Patreon at www.patreon.com/audiobooklovin. We thank you for your support.
Thank you for joining us on the Audiobook Lovin Podcast, hosted by Viviana, Enchantress of Books. For links and more information discussed in today's episode, previous podcasts, or the Audiobook Lovin Series, please visit our website, vivianaenchantressofbooks.com. If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave a positive review wherever you listen to our podcast. Until next time, happy listening.